to Spirit of Matter. It's Shirley, and I'm with the obligatory Pluto Ingress to Aquarius. And first of all, Ramadan Kareem to all my Muslim viewers who celebrate Ramadan. I know it's tomorrow, beginning tomorrow, so easy fast. Um, this video is simply about what we're going to have in just a couple of days. It's in the 23rd of March, perhaps a bit earlier, a bit later, depending on where you are on planet Earth or elsewhere, if you're watching it from any other planet. At any other time, I mean, we are heading to Pluto in Aquarius for 20 years, so who knows? But this is from the vantage point of being on planet Earth. So the houses will apply from the point of view of your native chart. I don't know what happens when you move to another planet, and that's another question that we need to ask ourselves as astrologers. The time of where I begin this broadcast is a Monday, Moon Day, where I'm at, and a Sun hour. The Moon is in Pisces, 15 degrees Pisces, applying to a sextile Uranus and opposes lot of fortune. And the Sun is in the 29th anaretic degrees of Pisces. It is separating from a square to Mars, separating from conjunction with Neptune. And is exactly, the Sun is exactly sextiling Pluto, which can explain why did I feel the need to do this broadcast right now, because I didn't pre-elect this broadcast. It's live. So the vantage point of the Sun and the Moon, my prediction, and immediately what comes to my mind is eclipses. And I talked about eclipses and about Pluto going through the sign, going through Aquarius previously, and the notions of eclipses with Keto, okay, with what we release, versus eclipses with Rahu in a sign. And when we have an outer planet, then we will have both an eclipse with Rahu and an eclipse with Ketu in the same sign, very likely, okay, especially when it's 20 years. And so just like with Capricorn, when Pluto was in Capricorn, and now it is in the 29th degree of Capricorn, we had eclipses with Rahu in Capricorn, and then we had eclipses with Ketu in Capricorn. And you can try to think, where were you when Rahu was in eclipse with Capricorn? Where were you when Rahu was in eclipse with when Ketu was in eclipse? And I'm actually called to offer you a special reading regarding that, which is strange because I haven't been doing readings in a while. But yes, why not? I can invite you if you want to check your personal chart and want to discuss with me the previous Pluto transit, what have you learned, and where you are heading in terms of the eclipses that you will experience in your life. We can try to have such a personal reading. So you can email me. I have my email, or you can catch me in Twitter. I'm Tali Shear on Twitter. So you can DM me. Only you DM me, because first of all, there's no reason for me to contact you. So if anybody tries to pretend that they are me, I don't know if this gets many views. That can happen. Unless we spoke, okay? There's no, no. Don't give your any of your money, of your bank account details, to anybody who identifies as me and contacts you, unless, of course, you contacted me. Okay. So this is an option. And first of all, a bit of because the point of this video is really to be directed to you, the people, to have a glimpse of what will Pluto do in your own natal chart according to the house it is going through. Now, house system is important. I'm currently working with whole sign houses. I can't say I will not glimpse at Placidus if that is called upon. If I feel like I need to look at the Placidus arrangement of the houses here, But normally, I currently work with whole sign houses. I find that to be useful. And so, if you have preferences for other house systems, then no, I'm not as proficient in something that's not whole sign houses, and to a lesser extent, Placidus. So, yeah, um, just a bit of intro. So, what is Pluto in general, and then what is Aquarius? Pluto in general is about cellular rejuvenation, it's about the nuclei. And indeed, if you've been watching science news, you've seen that there are new theories, or the theories. At first, there is a crisis, okay? Certain discoveries were made that challenge the notion of the model of the atom, um, the way we've known it. Okay, so the model of the atom is changing. Also, the model of time, and Aquarius is ruled by Saturn, and so the certain conceptions of time are now having collapse. We're now finding new dimensions of time, different dimensions of time, and new ways to see time. Pluto is also gravitational force. We are heading from a gravity as a force, or gravity versus the land, okay, thinking about gravity on Earth versus gravity on the moon, or gravity on Mars, to Aquarius, where it's an air sign, so um, gravity as a relation, or a change of relation between states, a change of anthropical relations. And entropy is the arrangement of both particles but also energy, because particles and energy, I'm sorry, I cannot do this without being a bit scientific, to say the least. It's a very triggering, it's science triggering a position to talk about. Um, so we're going to have a lot of discoveries from cosmology, from the particle physics to the grand, astronomical. We're going to have applied experience of living abroad to Earth, okay? And I've already looked at insurance companies, and we have insurance companies that are soon to offer insurance policies for traveling to space. So this is becoming very much a hands-on applied experience, rather than an in the air concept. Pluto is also a very manifesting planet. And, yes, it's the nuclear bombs. Yes, it is. It was discovered around the time of the nuclear bombs. And this can manifest in those ways. At the essence, it's a crisis or a rejuvenation of the core of the cell, of the core of the atom, of the core of anything. Okay, core beliefs. Yeah, if it's entering your ninth house, your core beliefs are about to change. Um, and I will go house by house by all the significations. And yes, Pluto can bring about the crisis. Cell rejuvenation does mean that the cell dies and something is born. It can also be with Aquarius DNA rejuvenation, um, uh, because Aquarius deals with um, the nervous system, which is and anything decentralized, whether in our body or outside of our body. Thanks, Lada, for the DNA comment. I know that she mentioned that, and even though that's a concept that anybody who knows these archetypes can come about, I know that she, like, if I know that someone said it, then I like to give credit to Lada for the DNA comment. And I know that she deals with a lot of things to do with holistic DNA repair. She has practitioners that do that, so you can hop onto Lada's channel, Lada Duncheva. Um, uh, and another thing to consider is on a societal level. Again, anything decentralized. So we're ingressing from the top of the mountain to space. We're from the top of the hierarchy collapses, and now it's not another hierarchy that is formed. because Pluto with Capricorn is the change of hierarchies. Okay, the people on top change. We had a black president, we had an orange president that is now about to be arrested, and may or may not play roles in the civil future roles in civil wars or something like that. We had women leaders, women running for presidency. We have Michelle Obama considering running for presidency, so black woman, and that's just in the States, who's been also having its Pluto. We have feminist leaders. We have Martian women leaders. We have queer leadership in many cases, and the world, the certain parts of the hierarchies have been transformed. Okay? If we had election system in Israel and both right-wing and left-wing parties competed over who has more women to show, what do these women represent? How do these women represent is another question, but that was something that was not there in 2008. We did not have an overall competition over which is the party that gives better representation for women. And the ingress to Aquarius is where we get that no matter how much we change within the hierarchy, there are still things that we need to decentralize. Think about having a woman queer queen is not going to solve the problems of humanity entirely, because there still is a necessity to decentralize the kingdom. And that is the meaning of Pluto ingress into Aquarius. This is on a mundane level, on a large level. Now you're asking, what is that to do with my life? And now we enter another psychological, because Pluto can also be psychology to some extent, another argument that is also psychological and philosophical in nature, and that is, what do the planets, the outer planets of the zeitgeist, have to do with my individual chart? How do I know they even make a difference? And my answer, my humble answer to that is, if you pay attention to when is an outer planet meeting a personal planet, by any aspect, okay, harmonious or disharmonious, you will see that along the year and a half to 2 to 3 years that this is happening, those areas in your life that are personally touched, that can be you, that can be people around you, your pets, your boss, your family, your partner, are so fundamentally transformed that there's a new them. And it's not something you can miss. If it doesn't touch any of your personal planets, you might not even hear about this on the news, because Pluto always so represent, by the nature of being the core of something, it is also hidden. Okay? And therefore hidden knowledge as well. But it's also because it is changing, so the inside becomes the outside. Pluto Capricorn was also eruption of a lot of volcano, magma, and as Pluto is in the anaretic degree, where I was at least learning about, with Saturn being in my ninth, okay, I was at least learning about how metals are formed, and that they are formed by magma. And if just common sense, if we mine the shit out of our mountains, Capricorn, we cool the inside of the earth, and then there's more eruption and more eruption and more eruption, so we dry the inner out. And so the entire climate is changed by the virtue of the gradual, okay, Saturn procedure, gradual across the generation mining of these metals, or crystals, or salts. If you go to the Dead Sea, you see a field, you barely see a sea. And I talked about this in other videos. So how does that meet you? Yeah, depending on your personal planets, depending on what do you have in this case, not only in Aquarius, and this is important. I will concentrate on the houses in this video, and if you're watching, then you can have a timestamp for when I start doing the houses, so you can skip to that. If you just want to watch your house, then that's great. but the introduction is important, so you get the context. Nothing happens without the context. It's not just what you have in Aquarius. First of all, what do you have across the fixed signs? So Aquarius, Leo, Taurus, and Scorpio. Okay, those of you who are of the generation of Pluto in Scorpio, so 1984 until 1996, if I'm not mistaken, all of you will, in the coming 20 years, experience the Pluto square, okay, which is where Pluto transits your natal Pluto by square relations. It is not something that you miss. It's when you think about Saturn return, Saturn maturation, Uranus square, Uranus opposition. All of those relations are important transits in a personal chart. Okay, and the square is tension. Okay, you meet the issue of finding your power, the core of your power, because you need to center yourself. Okay, psychologically, energetically, whatnot, finding the core of your power and centering yourself, and you meet that in a frictional relation. Okay, there's a friction where now you need to find the point of power in your life. And now that depends, where is Scorpio, where is Aquarius? So we're looking at two houses. There's the point where I began, okay, in natal Pluto, and then there is the point that Pluto is right now relative to your natal Pluto. And in both of these houses, you will meet the context of the inner alchemy, inner transformation that Pluto is steering up. And it'll be slow and gradual, but it's not something you can miss. Okay? It's slow and gradual degeneration and regeneration. So rejuvenation is both a degeneration of the old and a rejuvenation, okay, of something new. It's completely transformed. A part of the things, I have Pluto in my 9th house in Scorpio, part of the things that have been changing is that the very view I have on Pluto. Okay? I don't just see it as crisis. I realized Pluto can also be the compost in my yard. I'm actually using Pluto in my apartment. I would have the Pluto symbol, and it's running around and it's doing things. Like if I have a mess somewhere, I will put Pluto there, and then everything changes. I did it on my fundings, and then I began to be aware of diversity, the needed, now I understand the connection between biodivergence, coinage divergence that is needed, the minerals in the earth, how we source our coins, and all of these things just happened by me having, saving a bit of money, put in the Pluto sign of rejuvenation, and the word rejuvenation is related to Pluto, and regeneration. So rejuvenation, regeneration. I found that I used my money that I saved, and the other money I also bought various coins with it. So I saw what's on the bill. Okay, what's on the bill of each country. It's so fascinating to see that. And so there was a regeneration and rejuvenation of that wealth, and awareness and change of my worldview. Hey, Pluto is not just, a soul crisis, soul transformation in the sense. It can be the simple things. The money you set aside or not, or how do you set things aside? Well, how do you invest things? It can be the mess you have in your room. It can be the compost in your yard. Do you have a compost? Are you ready to have a compost? Are you ready for this commitment? Okay. It can be something that you want transformed. I had put it in my bathtub when I had mold that I wanted to clean. So a lot of the mold is clean now. And I found slowly and gradually a way to clean it. Also, on a holistic level, psychologically, certain things that were charged with this stagnation. Okay, now it's entering my my 12th house, and 12th house is also the bedroom. Lo and behold, the mattress that I'm sleeping on, that was from the apartment, I tried to clean that, and it was wet, and I had to put it back inside, and it has a bit of a smell of mold. Now I have to clean it again. Okay, so it's a bit moldy. And look how the physical manifestation of Pluto can be so simple, and like just by tending to this mattress that I have to clean from the mold, a lot of things will happen in my life. Okay, just by tending to the mess that I have in my house. Now a lot of things happen in my life, because as I was cleaning, I was having thoughts. things would rearrange, understanding of why it took so long to clean and to arrange things, and so on and so forth. So you can see how this square, the square forming relationship can be simplified, but Pluto is also sextiling my ascendant. So of course I experience it more joyfully. I see the merit in it. Okay, when I was me too veteran, Pluto, if I'm not mistaken, was trining my sun. Okay, and so even though I went through tremendous struggle, there was also this support of the kingdom that I'm building. And a lot of what I talk about in my vlogs is a continuation of the things I learned at that time. It's not an easy thing, okay? Squaring some other things like squaring my ascendant, but trining my sun. Now, your natal chart has personal planets everywhere. Okay? So the fixed signs, it will have conjunctions with what's in your Aquarius house. But it is spending 20 years in Aquarius, okay? So if you have something in 5 degrees Aquarius, it might not get there before, I don't know, 2025, 2026. And also, um, it's not just Aquarius. What do you have in Leo? Because Pluto will slowly oppose that. What do you have in Taurus and Scorpio? Because you will have the square relation. Okay? So, and then there are the harmonious aspects. And then there are the aspects of the in conjunction. Okay? Pluto is going to in conjunct anything in Cancer and anything in Virgo in the coming 20 years. That's important. And the minor aspects. So it's going to make an aspect, it's going to trigger your chart, but you're going to pay more or less attention depending on you know how you rub each other, basically. So that is something to remember. The ruler of Pluto remains Saturn, and yet the nature of Aquarius is about themes of decentralization and decentralized systems. Nervous system, open source system, the type of what allows for mass surveillance also allows for mass transparency. Okay, if you hack into the cameras that surveil everybody, like I don't know, like you'd see everything. You'd see our thoughts, you'd see our body parts, you'd see everything, and a part of the result is going to be radical acceptance. It is gradual. It's a 20-year process. Okay? Because if everything is exposed, then all you can do is radically accept who you are and radically accept that you are a divine being. You are a divine being who may have, you know, this addiction, who may have that habit that you need to change, or may have you know, this bump on your, you know, side of your butt or whatnot. You may have all these things that that you're going to gradually, radically accept because they are now transparent. They're decentralized. There's an exposed, whether by social standards or and there you need to understand it's not. You know, the what can be used to mass surveillance, to mass control, can also be used to mass liberation. Okay, if you hack into a system that was meant to control everybody and you just broadcast it, what matters is how do people see sun moon what they're being broadcasted. I can expose the entire truth to you. If you see it as a bad thing, then you will see it one day. If you see it as a good thing, I can tell you. I don't know. There is now a militia of LGBTQ people in, let's say, I don't know if it's true even, Pakistan, that are planning to overthrow the regime and have a decentralized form of rulership across the state and across wherever refugees and immigrants of Pakistani nations are. And they're not going to count for nationalism, like you can join them, it doesn't matter who you are. Then you can look at this and you say, okay, and let's say you believe me, then you can say, okay, this is horrid. the world is going to come to an end. We'll no longer can rely on the notion of this is a man, this is a woman. Or you can say, oh my God, what a great thing is happening. It is so good to know. It is so good that this is exposed, and LGBTQ people of all the world and beyond gather and unite. Okay, all those things can happen. The sun and moon are very much reflect our eyes, and so how we okay the womb, the fluids that we have in our body, as well as this moon, the heart, the center, and both of them, womb and heart, almost tantrically having hand on my womb, hand on my heart, and then aligning these chakras. We are aligning our eyes, and then the seat of the soul. The soul can land into the seat of the soul, and we can see the world clearly, and so on. Granted that we have a base, granted that all the other chakras are aligned, and so on and so forth. And so the moon and the sun also rule eclipses. Okay, so for example, I'll take the same concrete example that I just told you, and with eclipses, and now we're approaching to have, in a couple of years, I think 6 or 7 years, we will have Rahu in Aquarius for the first time. We'll have a set of eclipses with Rahu in Aquarius. Then you might see that the new, and you might think, either you idealize the new, or you're like, oh, I'm so wishing for the new thing to come. And the new thing can be a system that is used for mass surveillance. And you're like, oh, I'm so excited that now I'm going to know if my neighbor is a thief, if my, boss is a whore, and you think about a whore in a certain way, and you think about a thief in a certain way. And you think, oh my gosh, this is going to be so great. I would like to have that social credit score. And wouldn't it be nice if people could only have money transactions if they are fair and just? And then, lo and behold, 9 years later, we'll have eclipse with Keto. And you're like, oh my God, what was I thinking? Of course the governments are going to use that against us. Of course everybody's going to snitch on everybody. Of course you can't really trust it, because everybody can say somebody stole somebody that, or somebody can hack into this system and put this knowledge and this information about this person. Now they can't have transactions, but they're not the one we're looking for. Oh wait, that person was a thief because they didn't have money to begin with, so they had to steal stuff. Oh, that person was working in prostitution because that was what they had to do to survive. Or alternatively, hey, that person was being sex positive and they just worked in, OnlyFans or something, and there's really nothing wrong with having a sexual being as long as you respect the boundaries of each other. And so they were selling this type of art. Why did I even think that that's bad? Okay, who knows what we will think in 20, 30 years? And this is a gradual process. Okay. Now, take into account that Pluto does not stay static. It moves very slowly. But the point of where you meet this Pluto in Aquarius, in the first set of eclipses with Rahu in Aquarius, and with the second set of eclipses with Ketu in Aquarius, and we're talking about the passage of 18 years. So if you have Rahu or Ketu, you might be having your nodal return and nodal reversal. Okay, so it's going to be even more significant for you by the merit of these eclipses. Now, if you were born in the shade of eclipses, very close to an eclipse, then that is even more affecting you. Okay, whenever eclipses happen, they affect you even more. So much for the introduction. I'll actually try that, because I've seen that when it's straight, I hope that will give better view. The Pluto ingress. Okay. And this is where you want to timestamp. It is 29 minutes, 50 seconds, where I begin to do the houses. So it's a small introduction. I do have lengthy videos about Pluto in Aquarius that you can look up at my, video section. But this is mainly for the houses. Across the houses, for the people not doing, science stuff. First house. So if Aquarius is your first house, you're going to have 20 years of Pluto in your first house. What do you need to know about that? Anything to do with DNA repair, nervous system, your body being athletic, and your life path is going to go through certain transformation. You need to look at what is in your first house, okay? Because and where is the ruler, and what spectral relations are between Pluto and the ruler of your first, which is Saturn. So that can manifest itself from a range of experiences, targeting cellular rejuvenation in the core of your being, so in your DNA, in your nervous system. Any dogma that you held onto that has manifested in will no longer be by the merit of your body changing. So that, yes, that can happen through crisis, yes, that can happen through ailment, yes, that can happen through restriction. Like there are ranges of experiences with Pluto. Like I said, it's the nuclear bomb in as much as it is the compost in your yard. Pluto rules so nervous system around the anus. It can be stress related or inflammation related, can arise if you do have anything to do with your anus. It's about holistically letting go of the past. It can also be a result of medications of pills if that is your case, and there is a certain sort of path that you're physically heading to. There can also be technological intervention. It can be around secretion, because Pluto rules secretion, but it can also be like the example of DNA repair. Become more fit, or alternatively, if you experience an injury, it forces you to activate your nervous system in a different way. This can also happen. Nervous system, okay? And that can be the ability to move your head, your body, and so on. Like the range of experiences. And again, this is not to mind you, a person who was sitting on a wheelchair and could barely move their fingers came up with the theory around black holes and the theory of gravity to do with why we do see light at the end of a black hole, and that theory to do with gravity and the way that gravity like it's the beginning of the way that gravity acts as a wave. That was important. That was an important discovery. That was something that, yeah, that person intensely thought about something. So intellectual achievement that that you tend to. So if you're tend to a scientific endeavor right now, your body physically needs to be possessed by that, and to find power, the center of your power, and that will, the center of gravity within you. Finding the center of gravity within you, any exercise that helps you to find the center within you is going to be especially fruitful for your life path. Because the way you find the center of gravity within you, the way you center yourself in the air, around waves, me recording that in a wave producing device, is going to be crucial to your life path, what you came here to do. Okay. You might even be able to see that when you center yourself, your center of gravity, when you are centered, you no longer need to control others as much, or others do not have so much control over you. Because this is, and I think Sveti and Victor for the notion of Pluto in the first house as you can go to extremes on trying to meditate or to control others or to be within a certain energy or a certain state. So those things happen. And it's important to remember that Pluto has an oscillating, okay, between um, facet to it. So there can be a process of finding the balance between extremes, and this is also thanks to Sveti and Victor on Pluto and Aquarius. Yes, the first house is also the seventh house, but it's also squaring to the fourth and the 10th house, and so of course there can be square relationship with anything in your 10th. It could be your bosses and your fourth, your upbringing, your family. Of course, when you transform, everything around you transforms. Okay, so and that is gradual. It takes 20 years for that. Ascendant Pisces. For you, this is happening in the 12th house. And so finding the center of gravity amongst non-linear changing systems happens to you on a peak astral level. Okay? Or you could say psychological to a certain extent, or spiritual. Okay? Definitely. Saturn just left this sign. So there's certain boundary reaffirming that you did with Saturn, and Pluto prepares you for the new timeline. Okay, there are certain things you did that were relevant to your own inner resilience and growth, and now there are certain things that are a part of a certain timeline. Okay, it's no longer just setting the boundaries to a person. It's also the continuation of setting the boundaries to systems. And setting your boundaries within decentralized systems. So channeling is one decentralized system. And how these decentralized systems of waves and frequencies affect your astral body. Okay, again, I'm recording this on a cellular device. So how do I transfer, how do I do what I'm doing right now in a way that's more adaptable to wealth and well-being? It's a big question. I don't have the answer. Okay, and I know I've been getting that, the restriction of the time that I use my cell phone and so on and so forth. 12th house is also a house of confinement and isolation. So there's certain necessary confinement, necessary isolation. It's the type of isolation, again, that of the hermit, if you're doing tarot, of the hermit. So I had this, the song, speaking about sowing seeds, of when I think it was when Pluto was still in Sagittarius, where I was listening to Leonard Cohen, and then it hit somewhere along the line of Pluto and Capricorn. I did a CD of Leonard Cohen songs and gave it to my mother because she began to like Leonard Cohen because of me. And now I'm reaping the seeds that I saw with me traveling in the car with my mama and wanting to hear a happy song, and then they sentenced me to 20 years of boredom for trying to change the system from within. I'm coming now to reward them. First we take Manhattan, then we take Berlin. And that is as Pluto ingressing to 20 years in my 12th house. So I do hope I'm not sentenced to 20 years of boredom for trying. But you just see the funny and hilarious humor of the cosmos. It's like those are and with Pluto and Capricorn, I saw these seeds of listening to this song every time we put Leonard Cohen in the series of our old car. Like I was the person who created this CD. Okay, now as Pluto is ingressing to my 12th house, this song was playing in my in my mind. Um, and, and the 12th house is, there is a way in which you are going to be a bit close from society. I can say when Saturn was in my 12th house, there was a period where I was in between houses, and then we were going during the day. We had to get out of the shelter, so we were found a hospital, and so we were staying at the hospital, and so I was giving channelings to people from the hospital, and that's how I made my money. Pluto can also denote taxes. Okay, now I have an issue that of some of my money that was some donation and some in another country where I went for exile because I escaped an unhealthy connection. And so I was very isolated then. So it can be in hospitals, jails, hotels, and now I'm living next to the Dead Sea. There are a lot of hotels, a lot of steamers where I live. Um, and it can also mean isolation. So since I moved, it was already a year, and maybe one person visited my house. Like, and I'm usually quite a hospitable person. I'm not a famous, around people person, but I'm quite social. And Saturn was in my 12th house, and nobody visited me. Like, not because, like, I did not create these connections with my locals and so on and so forth. So that was funny. A bit of a hermit. Pluto is. Um, you get even more to the with Saturn. You get to the foundation, to the structure, to the bone, which is very core. Okay, with Pluto, it's the core of the cell, cellular rejuvenation, um, and here the tending to decentralized systems. I have no idea how it will definitely. If you think about hotels and simmers, you think about surveillance or cameras, and how those are used, and this is also the bedroom. And like I said, Pluto ingressing from my 11th to my 12th, and already before the ingress, I begin to have this smell of mold that I need in the bedroom. Okay, so this is a physical manifestation. It's already happening. Probably, maybe I will need to buy a new mattress. Maybe I will try to clean it. Maybe I try to clean it, or and I need to sign the contract, and the landlord has the smell of mold in my bedroom that I need to tend to. Okay, we already have a situation here. This is already a crisis situation happening, and there's nothing I can do because why would this smell to begin with, right? Obviously it's the bedroom, and then obviously I need to clean the mattress, and then obviously I have to get it back in from the sun, and moldy because it didn't dry out. So now we have a very a bedroom situation that smells bad, that you can't, like, that you have to, like, you can't put an aromatherapist, mind you, and look how funny and humorous that is. Okay, the ruler of my, the modern ruler of Aquarius is Uranus. Okay, for me it is in the 10th house, so I speak about this openly. um, it's like, hey, liberating, but this can be like a stupid situation where there's mold in your bedroom. You have to tend to it, you have to fix it. So it's also dangerous, right, to your breathing and to your nervous system. Uh, those are the and also if you have a crisis, tend to anything moldy, because mold and fungi is Plutonian. Okay, mold and fungi. Throughout these 20 years, we will have further understanding of them on a scientific level. But for you, trying to stay personal, it's very difficult to stay personal with another planet, in the planet of humanity, in the sign of humanity. But anything that you have on a psychological level, understand that it has. And for a physical explanation, look to fungi. Also for remedy, perhaps certain microdosing. I'm not your doctor, and I am not. I never did microdosing as far as I'm aware of. Um, so that might be something you want to tend to. Ascendant. Aries. So ascendant Aries, this is happening in your 11th house. So for you, it's finding your center of gravity around your colleagues and around society at large. Okay? Um, that can range from various experience, from being the guru of some alternative cult and then being exposed, so what are you setting your um, or following, maybe you are admire, let's say you admire Anonymous, and then lo and behold you meet one of these guys, and unlike the other guys, that person is abusive to you, and now you're having a quarrel with someone from Anonymous. Okay, not bashing Anonymous, it's just an example for the power of decentralized, the power of decentralized power. Okay. um, and the power of decentralized systems. So this will affect your social life. We'll have to find your center of gravity within all kinds of groups. So Pluto also attracts. Okay, there are certain kind of knowledge or social knowledge that you can attract. For me, I have ascendant Pisces, and so it is ending 15 in my 11th house, and throughout that time I had a tremendous crisis because I have Neptune in the first degree of Capricorn. I had a tremendous crisis of trying to find a group of people with whom I can be exposed to new people, and then I found they're all terrible. And gradually I've exposed more and more facets of myself, of my interest, and I always found a social group that was interested in that. Lo and behold, I'm an astrologer. Okay, but even within these groups I had to find my power. It was when it was time to let go of a group, and when, because Pluto is also letting go, and when it was time to join a new group. And so the knowledge that I had from social group and the social groups that I opened and delivered knowledge, and that is the process that you're going to have, but with decentralized social groups. Okay, and so there can be a crisis. We are already having this Bitcoin crisis. What is a Bitcoin and what is a digital coin but an attempt to have decentralized coinage system? We are amidst a certain crisis. There can be, Twitter is now heading to open source. Okay, Elon Musk announced that he will open source the code for tweet recommendation. And so we can have a crisis around that. It's like, okay, when we are exposed to source, and up until now we were doing that among the mass wisdom or the mass intelligence of people who did open source coding. And there were communities and there were ideologies around these people. Now it's to the wide public. And so there can be a crisis, okay? The wisdom of the masses versus the stupidity of the masses. You might experience that, and you might be, that this might be targeting you, if you have, what is the personal planet and where is the ruler, where is happening in natal chart. So there can be mixed identities around these decentralized systems, or an attempt to solve issues of security with open source. Okay, which I think is a good idea, but there can be even a crisis to this notion. Maybe there are things that I didn't know that I didn't know. So your dreams or goals are going to change, and your agendas and the people you associate yourself with. You're going to have to find your center of gravity. It's a gradual 20 years experience. It's not going to happen at once. It's going to happen over time, and there can be oscillations between feeling isolated from your social group, or feeling disempowered, or being a guru, or being a leader, spiritual teacher, and so on and so forth, and then coming back to your senses and just being a human being. Ascendant Taurus. This ascendant puts Aquarius in your 10th house. And so it's about finding your center of gravity within relations, both with one of the parents, can be the father, the mother. Um, Becoming a parent can also becoming a boss, um, having a role of leadership in society, or having a fall from grace. Okay, and it can be a beginning of it can be leadership and a fall from grace, or it can be a fall from grace and then leadership. Because Rao is going to be first and Ketu second, um, then uh, you're going to um, this it's a passage of having um, a rejuvenation and then a letting go. Okay, if we can compare Capricorn, then when Ra was in Capricorn and there were eclipses, it was like it was time to turn to social groups, and as Keto was in Capricorn, it was time to turn to my leisure more so than my activism. It was time to release certain sorts of activisms that I've been doing, release certain sort of groups that I've been a part of, and nourish my inner child, my leisure, my fertility, because fifth house it was for me. So there is a time where you're gonna have to do 11th in the first coming year, gradually letting go. While you are having this view, okay, this more spiritual view of this 11th house in your life towards, um, you know, between 2030 to 2040, it's going to be more the process of purging what was true or what became true up to then in favor of a new paradigm, in favor of a new voice. Is going to take more and more proportions as we proceed with the eclipses. So at first, it's time to go 11th. It's time, like there are experiences there, house whether you like it or not. And then gradually you're beginning to have your experiences and letting go in favor of other houses, other areas of your life that Pluto will oppose. Okay, so you will see how when Pluto, let's say, it opposes your here it will be your fourth house. So you will see how the family of upbringing was shaped by the status that you have or didn't have, or that your father had or didn't have, or that your mother had or didn't have in society, and how your entire house, maybe even the house that you're living in, was shaped by this experience. That's with the Ketu. Ascendant Gemini. This puts Aquarius in your ninth house. So, traveling, higher studies, like if you're going to study nuclear activity or something to do with the core activities, cell regeneration, DNA, you might be innovator, you might be one of the people we are going to hear about in 20 years and say their names, like Einstein, like Feynman, like, I don't know, think about brain, neuroscience or whatnot, brain studies. Then you're going to be one of the names that we're going to hear about. That can be the case. In terms of traveling, think about traveling and decentralization. So, unlike people who will be affected by Uranus slowly entering Gemini and will be more local, you will actually be teleported. And that can be to space, like you can travel to space, absolutely. Um, and you will do more traveling in the coming 20 years. And it doesn't necessarily, okay, and this is important to remember, because it doesn't necessarily mean traveling physically. You could be traveling astrally. You could be traveling in terms of learning the philosophies and ideas around you know, um, and it depends who is denoted by, like, who is that Saturn in your ninth? What does it represent? Does it represent your teacher, your guru? Does it represent your father? Who is represented by this, by this Saturn? Because you're going to have to find your power in the face of, of this Saturn. Um, so this is also worldview and your beliefs, your spiritual beliefs. Um, if I think about, I have Pluto naturally in 0 degrees in Scorpio, then the first 9 years of my life um, were abundant with being exposed to religious stories in a secular setting, and um, and shaped, what happens to a child when they hear the story of Abraham putting Yitzhak on, like being ready to sacrifice his son, and then God interfering, and you just accept it as a child, and you say, oh well, God interfered, and the teacher asks you a question and you answer like an adult, and so they begin to think of you as an important person because you answered with the wisdom that's supposed to be for an adult and not for a child. I think that's stupid because children are way smarter when they first encounter things. So you could have these experiences where you are exposed to religious stories and you oscillate between fundamentalism and and atheism. So um, that can be a certain situation. Like, how does religion affect you? How does philosophy affect you? And um, that is a 20 years thing where you're going to take a look at the core beliefs that you have, and they're going to be transformed. Either way, they're going to be transformed, whether it's by traveling, by studying, by teaching. Okay, perhaps you become a lecturer in the coming 20 years. All of that can happen. And of course, it begins with gravitating towards the ninth house and then slowly letting go in favor of honoring the third house. So your nearest surroundings, your siblings, and so on and so forth. Um, so the fields of study related to Pluto can range anywhere from psychology to cellular, like stuff to do with cellular activity, like stuff to do with gravity, gravitational forces, gravitational waves, black holes, dark matter, and so on and so forth. But then, who am I to tell you what to study, right? If something catches your eye, you will, like, it will happen. It's not. Ascendant Cancer. So, for you, this is happening in the 8th house. Pluto in the 8th house. Here's a wave. Think about gravity as entropy. Think about speed, temperature, velocity. Go to my Spirit of Matter series about temperature, velocity, density, change of state. All of these things are going to apply directly to the alchemy of those things. Okay, go to my cosmology series of Spirit of Matter. A cosmology episode is an old episode that I recorded about 2 years ago. And see how does this how do you meet this information? It's relevant in occult studies. It's relevant in finding your center of gravity in terms of energy boundaries, and that will affect the generational wealth that you have, and healing ancestral issues around these generations. See, it's Saturn related, so and how knowledge around these topics. You may have ancestral knowledge that is scientific. You may have ancestral wealth to do with science, with maybe with patents, and the decentralization of patents, because this is also, something that is generation, like it's what your legacy, like inheritance related. Um, there can be inheritance related struggles, and then finding your center of gravity there. Then there needs to be the wealth needs to be decentralized, but because it is not just amongst two, okay, it's amongst society, and the wealth has to be decentralized. There can be in the beginning attempts to control or attempts to decentralize, and discerning between when is the means for decentralization becomes means of control, and when is the means for control actually hacked and become means of decentralization, which is a blessed thing that need to happen. You need to decentralize your investment portfolio, and I'm not an investment, like I'm not your accountant, but you definitely are going to have to tend to diversity of investments in energy, in waves, in frequencies, in where you allocate your knowledge, where you give, where you deliver your knowledge, where you get your knowledge, where you invest your energy, to be particular. All of that will need to be decentralized. If you're counting on holding to one significant other business, relationship, and so on and so forth, and I don't mean marriage. I don't necessarily mean marriage. But if you're counting on I'm going to care for my partner, they're going to care for me, and this is, my four walls and so on, as Capricorn 7th house can do, because it's confinement. Okay, it's like this is the duty that I have for my elder spouse. This is the duty that I have, I don't know, for my business partner, so for the neighbor in front of me, um, uh, or the certain guru that I learned from, that become like partner to me. In Aquarius, you need to expand your horizon, and your duty becomes from humanity to humanity. So it's eighth house is also house of legacy, and that can be you are more susceptible to experience a crisis to do with your retirement investments. Not necessarily that you retire, but whether it's your 401k or the equivalent, or where you at, and your savings, your life insurance, whatever money you have invested. Um, and then because it's Aquarius, one of the things I found myself saying, I was having a correspondence on Dan Waite's posts, which is dealing also with mundane and financial astrology, and is quite great at it. Um, so I mentioned his name quite a lot. And one of the things I said was, when people will start seeing, I don't remember the context, was people will start seeing investment as donation and donation as investment. So this is a great idea for everyone, especially with an Aquarius 8th house, especially with the Pluto and Aquarius. Okay? Your investment is a donation. You donate the money. You don't know if it will come. Now, what happens when this donation has to be the investment you need to support on your retirement? I don't know, dear. Your investment, the best investment, is a social change that will ensure the place of marginalized society, and of elderly people, and of anyone who is not of the mainstream, and will ensure their safety from cradle to grave. That's the end, like from the, that's what my prediction, that where it will eventually lead to, um, because anything that we think we can count on, it's not just, with Pisces is liquidity. um, Aquarius is money is there. Money, there is the Tom Jacobs saying about money that he teaches, that says money is money is energy. Um, that is particularly relevant for you, and you might want to take a Tom Jacobs course. I don't know. Like maybe, and again, I don't get money from this, which I'd love to have wealth from this, but if it's the wealth that if I need any favor, I will have someone to count on. Then that's the most wealth you can expect in this very airy Okay, very airy. Um, Financial things. So for you, the allegory of money that you invest, of investment, of your retirement, of your inheritance, of the mutual energy you share. So the allegory, the elemental allegory, is the element of air, and particularly the type of air that can be stormy, that is warm, that goes across, that spreads across, that social changes on a mass level, societal changes. So, and you would need to find your center of gravity within that. Um, it's not an easy, 20 years. Of course, traumatic, blah, 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 will arise to be resolved. And this is why 8th house transits are difficult, because something as, you know, mundane as, filing a report for my accountant can become a generational conflict of their ancestry and how they think, where they think I should put the money, and my ancestry. And Pluto is also hidden wealth. What happens when you have to hide money? You're sometimes hiding money. It's not because you want to cheat the government. And I gave an example about Doug Andrew, where you talk about life insurances. I don't know if it's the right investment or not. I don't know, shit from my life around that. I don't even have the wealth to invest in that right now. But when he was talking about how to do tricks to hide from the taxation, he was not talking about to Elon Musk and to Tom, Dick, and Harry that want to make sure they do not outlive their wealth, not by dying earlier, but by having enough money until they die, and then some. And this is a very real issue. It does not pertain to a person. Okay, so what happens? The government is necessary so that you will not outlive your wealth, just as if, let's say, we have a decentralized form of wealth, because we also have Deneb Al-Gedi. Okay, we have some time, but it won't be before 1935 or so that Pluto gets to Deneb Al-Gedi. A time, like, definitely interesting time to be alive, but it won't be before that Pluto gets to Deneb Al-Gedi. And yet, um, what happens when there is a survivalistic need to hide wealth, okay, versus the need to decentralize wealth, okay, because we definitely want to have enough wealth until we die, and we also don't want that supposed wealth to be, on the dead bodies of others. um Ascendant Leo. And for the 8th house, of course, that also means energy. Okay, so money is energy, but it's not just money. It can be energy, your astral boundaries, your energy boundaries. Who are you merging with? What are you being affected by? Who are you channeling? And so on and so forth. Psychic attacks can also be, it's not just the thing of the 12th, it can also be in the second and in the 8th. Ascendant Leo. So for you, Aquarius is in the 7th house. You are going towards very intimate relationship phases in your life. You might get married. Some people had, Pluto entered Capricorn, they found the love of their life, and they stay married, and they learn boundaries together. So you learn to find yourself, you find your power within a one-on-one partnership, business, marriage, or what we consider marriage, dual relationship. The neighbor in front of you, okay, the gegenüber, that which you speak to, who is in front of you, or an enemy. An enemy can be even someone you have conflicting opinions with, a competitor. Okay, more so. For you, there's no two way about it. Right now, you are absolutely about finding your own center of gravity within your partnership, your most intimate partnerships, and parts of yourself, okay, where we reflect. Um, and there are oscillations. Sometimes one side will have more power, sometimes the other will have more power, and this is where you find, compassion is needed as well as being assertive, and that's something you will have to grow into in the coming 20 years. Your first oscillation is going to be towards your partner. That can be both overpowering your partner unconsciously or being overpowered unconsciously. And then slowly and gradually this dynamic will change until you find a center of gravity that is compatible for both of you. Um, it can be a time where if you're not in a relationship, you can meet the person. It can also be a time where if you're in a relationship, you can either transform this relationship and the boundaries would change greatly, or what actually happens is that you leave a partner now. Anything that is of seven, you might find that you're leaving your business partner, your spouse, your neighbor that was living a door in front of your door, all of that. And that is important. Um, all the relationship teachings, you might be of the people who change the relationship teachings. You might grow to be an Esther Perel, um, because the relationship teachings that you'll have are going to be what Pluto creates. So what we now know about relationships and how to balance boundaries and attachment thing is, it's good to review that, review these teachings, um, but they're also going to transform because the context we have is not the organization, but the decentralized institution, the decentralized alternative. Okay, um, so and that can mean, also non-monogamous because it's one of the air signs. There can be a sense of non. It doesn't mean that it's non-monogamy. It can be, and even if it is non-monogamy, there can be a lot of issues of control. Non-monogamy does not rid you of jealousy, nor does it rid you of possessiveness, nor does it rid you of betrayal, nor does it rid you of anything that happens in monogamy. It just multiplies the partners, and that's a good thing to remember. Okay. That being said, monogamy does not rid you of so and so. Also a good thing to remember, okay? Because none of these modalities will make your life easier. What is more fit for you? It's a big question. I have been asking this question for my entire almost 40. No answer still. Ascendant Virgo, but then again, I'm Pisces ascendant. I never had Pluto in my seventh house. Ascendant Virgo. So for you, this is happening in your fifth house. If you have a tendency to gamble, you'll definitely go through 20 years of change or die around that. You might have tremendous and then tremendous losses. And you will also find out the psychological level, because fifth house is connection, and so gamblings and the addictions of the are solved at altering your attachment pattern, your connections, your relationship with your inner child. Your inner child will take control, or alternatively, you will try to control your inner child, which will tremendously tank. If you attempt to have children, that fertility, it can denote some cases. It can mean that by your journey of bringing a child to the world or raising a child, you will be a part of societal zeitgeist change. And I've been listening a lot. I haven't yet caught on with Catherine's family astrology videos. I know that's definitely something I would want to binge watch. I know Stephen Forrest, if I'm not mistaken, talked about being a parent and child. And what I did here was a lot of discussing that and the notion that you need you need a tribe to raise a child. At the same time, we want to also, when we raise a child, want to have this control that they are safe. And how do you do that with decentralized systems? How do you do that with mass surveillance? How do you do that with being exposed to everything everywhere? And so, and how do you deal with the experiences that children can deal with that can be of disempowering or frightening or even life endangering? In the tribe, in the family, in society. As the notion that Lata also mentioned that a lot of younger people are having so many suicidal thoughts that never before were the rates so high. Again, I don't know if never before were the rates so high of having suicidal thoughts, or never before had there been awareness of what is a suicidal thought, or never before had there been interest in researching teenagers and what they think and actually listening. So this is already my interference, her point. And so fertility, a creative project, children, or your inner child, or all of the above, become the focal point for at least the first 10 years that Pluto is in Aquarius. And depending again, what do you have there? Where is your Saturn? What do you have in Aquarius? What do you have in your fifth house? They can alter your experience. Relationship with your children can be tremendously challenging, but also point a source of growth and regeneration. That is where. And what do you do for fun? Huh? So, and when you address what do you do for fun, it's not, the personal is the political with Pluto and any other planet, but with Pluto especially, the personal is the political. What you do for fun is both a result of social construct, and it is also a process that which output is social contract. Con, con, Contract. Social contract is very important with Aquarius Pluto, but I spoke about it on other videos, and it's not this house anyway, not just this house. So that was for Ascendant Virgo. Ascendant Libra. Aquarius is your fourth house. House of upbringing, death, graves. You might want to visit graves. The house that you're living and the house that you're creating for yourself. So there can be, it's about finding your center, but it can also be loss, it can also be grieving, it can also be tending to the dead. You might be fascinated by graveyards more so than you were before. You might be living in the vicinity of a graveyard. Okay, you can say that I have Gemini in my fourth house when the Mercury in Aries. So Pluto was square in my Mercury, and I have natal Mercury opposition Pluto in the ninth house. So when I was in Ausland, okay, in Nederland, I was going to have food in the neighborhood De Pipe, like literally De Pipe, which pipe is also Pluto thing. And right now my house is in front of a cemetery. There's literally a cemetery in front of my house. So here you might be living in the vicinity, conjunction, okay, next to a cemetery. It can be something like that, and then you might have experiences. Maybe your house is haunted. Maybe there are experiences with mediumship or channeling or addressing also ancestral things, hidden taboo issues, taboo ancestral stuff come up. And those things are not just you, okay? It's related to the spirit of the times. Maybe you're we are all second or third generation to some world war. We are. and some of us are first generation. Huh? So there can be issues surrounding that and how it shaped even the house itself. Okay, anything to do with the pipeline, mold in the house, pipeline in the house, check it, because that will correlate, and the situation of your mold will correlate with your own healing. As you tend to clear this mold, the challenges that you will encounter, because Saturn is also delays and Pluto is a slow planet, will be a part of social changes. If you clean the house, if you clean mold, do that intentionally. Okay, do that intentionally, and you'll see the effect it has on your psyche, but also in society. Okay. Um, uh, there can be, if you're a family of scientists, then there can be certain taboos, certain finding your power as a scientist, and so on and so forth. It can also be in an elementary school, so being a teacher, or depending on your midheaven and where Saturn is, and so on and so forth. Um, Rejuvenation. So if you are living in one of those buildings that the pipes are old and rusty, that can be a time where you think about ruining the house, the structure itself, repairing it. If you're buying property, then perhaps there is mold in the property that you need to fix. Perhaps there's a pipe issue that you need to fix, or that you get a cheaper discount. Perhaps you buy these houses, or these are the houses you can afford, and you slowly invest in repairing that. Um, Tending to the pipes of your house is going to, and like just like with mold, okay, is going to yield good results. And you'll also see how it correlates with certain issues in your upbringing. You may find that you're dealing with your physical house, and then your mother had this in her own house, or that there's just an issue with that being stirred, being coming up in the fabric of your family is being rejuvenated in itself. Yes, there can be diminishing and rejuvenating of the family members themselves. This happens. It's one of the houses of death and the grave. So thinking about what to do, or like how to at the end of life, what to do with the body, and so on and so forth, all that can change as well. um, any more fourth house signification? Oh, I don't remember who talked about the fourth house as the place of happiness, but I think they meant that sidereally. So what makes you happy? A general overall sense of joy in life can go through transformation. Then can denote grief and loss that are involved in this transformation, where you find a new renewed sense of joy. You could have a near-death experience somewhere around the time. This is again, it's a range of experiences. Okay, it can mean you clean the mold from your walls and you experience healing, or you mean you have a near death experience, or it means you die. It's this, or if you have fear of death, then you can actually go through healing experiences regarding that and have acceptance towards death, and hopefully survive and stay with us by ascendant Scorpio. Oh my gosh, I see that I mixed something with Virgo. This was sixth house. Okay. Okay. Let's do it like that. Why did we cross the Virgo threshold and I couldn't do it anymore? Because we crossed the horizon. Oh my god. So Virgo, it is the sixth house. And then I did Libra, which is actually the fifth. Did I do something for Virgo? I don't remember. This episode now, and I'm going to re-record from Virgo at a later time in the future. So that is so fascinating. We crossed, like, I crossed the line of where the sun is. I crossed the horizon, and then I couldn't see clearly anymore. I mixed the houses. Where the moon is with Pisces. It's very interesting. because we began with Aquarius towards the sun, and then crossed the horizon and crossed the horizon again, and then the mistake happened. So that's interesting to observe. Let's take a look at the current planets so that they'll see the hour for when did that mistake occur. On a Mercury hour, yeah, and just 13 minutes ago. So this mistake happened on a Mercury hour with the ascendant in Libra. And I was trying to talk about the ascendant in Libra, then I had the mistake with the houses, but also with Virgo already I had a mistake with the houses. And it is ruled by Mercury. Virgo is ruled by Mercury. Yeah, so we had the Mercury mistake. Yeah. And so, fatally enough, I will speak about the next signs in the next part of this episode. See ya.